You're living in West and you are actually viewing this point on both the sides.
There is no society where Kam, Arth, Dharma and Moksha are absent.
People read it but nobody implements it in their life.
Most people don't know what it is, but it's at the end of every chapter. And at the end of every chapter, Bhagwan Shri Krishna, he says, Iti Yog Shastre.
Ma Kali, Ma Durga, Ma Saraswati.
Jai.
All these figures are very powerful. What's your perspective on that?
I have spent many years doing the Durga Chalisa with a great deal of determination.
We are worshipping the female, the femininity with so much respect, and especially on the other side, a person who is sitting on this position, he's actually framing these sentences or framing his words like this.
Go ahead and do what you think is right, and if it's actually adharmic, then the whole of the Brahmand will teach you, your karma will come back and teach.
Any scripture says something about that how should we lead our life, especially a women, ideology of how women should live their life.
We are seeing the individual being elevated as the highest form. Only a short period ago, that level of individuality was actually called selfishness.
Hello and welcome to TOI Mantra. I am Bhavna Sharma. So today we are talking about a very special subject, Sanatan Dharma, and we have a very special guest with us, Pandit Satish Sharma, who is a scholar of dharmic traditions. Pandit ji, a very warm welcome and namaste.
Pranam ji, namaskar, Jai Shri Ram to you, Bhavna ji. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you.
Jai Shri Ram. It's a pleasure for us to have you with us on this show. So, what I have been noticing that you have been so much vocal for Sanatan Dharma in UK and globally as well. I want to understand, and I want our listeners also to understand this, that what is your viewpoint on Sanatan Dharma in recent times, beyond any interpretation and media times?
It's a great question to start with. So firstly, Sanatan means that it has no beginning and it has no end. So the Dharma Vidya that we have is applicable to all times and all places. If you follow it, it gives you the highest of anand, it gives you the minimum of suffering, it leads to a state of incredible tranquility. It opens doorways for darshanas and for answers to the biggest questions that human beings have ever asked.
So, as I've been seeing that you have also been associated with IT and with technology as well. So, what do you think that in recent times, or if we see that in this era, in this technology era, how do you see that this Sanatan is actually helping us in growing or in evolving?
Well, it's taken Sanatanis a little bit of time to get used to the speed with which technology has moved forward. But I remember that when the internet was first created, it was created for military purposes. The people who created it never thought that families of Sanatanis would be piping the Hanuman Chalisa and Sundarkand and all sorts of incredible pieces of intelligence and wisdom into the internet. Now we have the appearance of what they call artificial intelligence, and soon there will be synthetic intelligence. In the same way, our responsibility is to use the technology that's available to actually restore harmony, to restore a sense of connectedness between human beings and to the planet.
So when we talk about the harmony and the peace globally as well, and when especially we are witnessing global wars across the world, across the countries. So how do you see it as how much Sanatan and how much our Hindu traditions and values are helping us, I mean, when we try to subside all these things globally?
Yeah, there are problems that are occurring now, which we have known about for millions of years, if not thousands of years. We have known more than anybody else what it is to be a human being. Our study first was ye kya hai? What am I? And so once we navigated the way in which the human being was created, Manomaya Kosh, Pranmaya Kosh, Vigyanmaya Kosh, Anandmaya Kosh, we understood what it is to be a human being. And then we looked at the outside world. So we put our own house in order and were able to go into the outside world and really enjoy the magnificent Brahmand and this creation that has been created. What we are facing now, though, is human beings in the Western world who don't know what they are. They do not know how to manage the mind. They do not know how to live with the incredible bodies that they've been gifted with. And a consequence of it is suffering. They are stuck in the pursuit of Kam in adharmic means. They are stuck in the pursuit of Artha without a dharmic compass. And the consequence of that is suffering.
So, I mean, you have mentioned other things as well, but when we talk about in the recent times that Sanatan or Adhyatma, don't you think it's being revived or politically hijacked? Especially, I'm talking about the Indian perspective. What do you see? Because you're living in West and you are actually viewing this point on both the sides. So, what's your viewpoint on that?
Well, actually, our dharmic framework is all-encompassing. There is no society where Kam, Arth, Dharma, and Moksha are absent. They're actually a wonderful progression, and we have got the journey mapped out with incredible detail. The West doesn't have this template. Either they are stuck in thinking that if I have the maximum Kam, sab kuch mil jayega, sab kuch ho jayega. Or if I can gather to myself the maximum Artha, then I can build my palaces. But those don't lead to happiness, they don't lead to contentment, and they don't lead to Anand. They're temporary frameworks. So they have a civilizational arc. In the West, there is a civilizational arc which is only 50% completed. They are still stuck in the first of the two Purusharth. So our teachings are actually the teachings they desperately need. When a person is stuck in the pursuit of Kam, always there is mental turmoil. All of the fears, all of the rag, dvesh, all of those phenomena plague a person. I was teaching and doing some work in the US, and one of my doctor friends there, he said last year we had 120,000 young people under the age of 25 who committed suicide. And yet the US has the highest GDP. It has the most doctors. It has supposedly the most qualified lawyers, accountants, and indeed the highest percentage of psychiatrists that the world has ever seen. And yet there is an incredible sense of loss, of unhappiness, of fear.
So you've been talking about Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moksh as well. And the people, I think in the West also, they have also been taught the Bhagavad Gita lessons also. आपके हिसाब से अगर हम भगवद गीता की प्रैक्टिसेस की बात करें, and especially because people read it but nobody implements it in their life. What's your viewpoint on that? Because when we try to implement it, because पता हर किसी को होता है, लेकिन करता वही है जिसको करना होता है. What's your viewpoint on that, especially counting on Bhagavad Gita?
Well, Kali Yuga, the Yuga that we are in, it started with Gita Upadesh. Bhagwan Shri Krishna Ji, he gave us the Bhagavad Gita. But there are many people who have read the Bhagavad Gita without doing the sadhana of the Bhagavad Gita. Most people don't know that the one shloka, which is repeated again and again and again in the Bhagavad Gita, so it must be important. Most people don't know what it is, but it's at the end of every chapter. And at the end of every chapter, Bhagwan Shri Krishna, he says, Iti Yog Shastre. This is a yoga bhyas scripture. And so it must be undertaken as a sadhana. It's not something like a Harry Potter book where you can read it and understand it and you're transformed. The Bhagavad Gita is a text, a yoga bhyas scripture for transformation. It's not for education. And so it must be approached as a sadhana, and like all sadhanas, it takes a lot of abhyasa. And the more you read it, the more it will reveal itself to you. And gradually, suddenly, your mind, your feelings, your thinking apparatus will all transform. It is a text of transformation. The Arjuna in chapter 1 is not the Arjuna in chapter 18. And so if you are reading it and diving into it and contemplating it. And if you're lucky enough to be introduced to a yogi or a guru who has done the sadhana of the Bhagavad Gita, then you will be transformed. Bhay will disappear, confusion will disappear, manobal will manifest, and you will start to see the world in a totally different way. You will not only see the Kurukshetra, but you will also see the Dharmakshetra.
So the more you read it, and the more transformation will happen inside you, right?
Absolutely. All of our scriptures are transformative. When we do the Hanuman Chalisa, many people do it as a bhajan. But for me, the most important line in the Hanuman Chalisa is Gije Nath Hirday Ma Dera. It's an invocation to Hanumanji to transform you and take residence in your Hirdayam. So you become an incarnation of Sri Hanumanji. That's a transformation. And so if the transformation doesn't happen, then it's still running around in your head. And so you need to do more abhyasa and more sadhana.
We are actually discussing the deities like Krishna. We have discussed about Krishna and Hanumanji. But when we talk about the feminine side, the feminine figure, Ma Kali, Ma Durga, Ma Saraswati,
Jai.
all these figures are very powerful. What's your perspective on that?
I agree with you entirely. I have spent many years doing the Durga Chalisa with a great deal of determination. And there is no doubt at the end of the Durga Chalisa, you feel that Ma has taken presence inside of you. She has given you more energy and more pran shakti than when you started your Durga Chalisa. And at the end of it, you have the courage, the words and the bhavna, the sentiment, the sounds, the rhythm, everything. They help to reharmonize all of your koshas and all of your being. And there is no doubt of it, Pran Shakti is the divine feminine. And without the divine feminine, the divine masculine is actually inactive. And so without it, it's very difficult to function fully. And Bharat's responsibility in the world is really to restore Dharma Vidya and to restore harmony across the planet. This is the responsibility of us. We're the only ones who have this Vidya. We're the only ones who know how to take a broken heart, a broken body, and a broken mind, and to help heal them and make them whole again. And so we have a huge responsibility and a great opportunity.
So before, sir, I will jump on to the next question. I have a very, I want your viewpoint on this question as well. So there is a Kathavachak in India whose name is Anirudh Acharya Maharaj. Recently, he commented on female actions or, in the Indian society, what the female sector is doing, which actually got so much of backlash. I might be knowing that you must have heard about it. What's your viewpoint on that? Yes, I want to know what's your viewpoint on that, because when we are worshipping the female, the femininity with so much respect, and especially on the other side, a person who is sitting on this position, he's actually framing these sentences or framing his words like this. What's your viewpoint on that?
Well, firstly, I'm a great believer in the Natya Shastra, which says that everybody has the highest level of freedom of expression. And we also have the choice to listen to what somebody is saying or to reject it. Our philosophy of karma says quite happily, you go ahead and do what you think is right. And if it's actually adharmic, then the whole of the Brahmand will teach you. Your karma will come back and teach you. And so from my point of view, he is completely entitled to express his opinion. And nobody has to accept it. When I do talks in interfaith, the first thing I say to people is that the world calls Hindus kufar and infidel. So whatever I'm going to say, you have no need to believe it. I don't need you to believe it whatsoever. And so when an acharya puts a proposition in front of people, if they are mature, they will have the opportunity to say to themselves, well, I don't believe that at this time, but other people do. They are entitled to their opinion. And it may be that I have got things to learn myself. It may be that my marg has got to teach me things, but that's my karma. And that is the sthiti, this is the uniqueness of the Sanatani tradition. We don't require everybody to conform to anything uniformly. Having said that, the acharyas are custodians of a civilization. Their job is to look like the lookout on the Titanic, a man called Fleet. His job was to look far ahead of the Titanic and to see whether there were obstacles. Our acharyas look far ahead of our civilization, and their intention and their purpose is to say to us, these are the probable outcomes of your actions, and I'm sharing them with you. Your individual desires may be detrimental to the greater Samaj. And also bear in mind, we have the understanding of Punarjanma. And so it may well be that something is presented to you for which you will benefit and everybody else will benefit in Janmas to come. So we have acharyas, and we should be very appreciative of the fact that they have the courage to say, this is what my sadhana, my study of ancient scriptures, my study of the Brahmand has revealed to me, and I'm sharing it with you. Whether you take it or leave it is your karma.
I think everybody has, this is what you have mentioned, that everybody has the freedom of speech and especially to live also.
जी,
And especially in the West, अगर हम West की बात करें, Western countries की बात करें, तो there I think everybody has the liberty to do anything and everything. How do we see it from the angle or from the perspective of dharma? Since you are a scholar of dharmic traditions, so how do we see it from that angle? Is there any
wonderful.
specific criteria or any scripture says something about that how should we lead our life, especially a women? And the I mean, I'm not pointing on that particular statement, but yes, I'm just talking about the ideology of how women should live their life.
Well, thank you for the invitation to a question which could be a Chakravyuha in its own right. I
Oh my God.
appreciate the skill with which you presented that. But I think we can derive a great deal of wisdom from the guidance of people who studied a whole of life. You know, I recall when I was in my teens, I was a different person. I had a different understanding. I had a different vision. I never had any expectation that Dharam Vidya and Dharam Gurus would take me, beat me up, and dust me down and create a better person. The whole of life journey teaches many things. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity for every young person to step back and try and look at the whole of their life. Ki aage kya hone wala hai? You know, there is a time when we're going to be vulnerable. There is a time when we're going to need protection. There is a time when we're going to need community. There is a time when we're going to need to learn in difficult times from the experiences of elders and of other people who have walked the journey that we're planning to walk. The person who thinks that they can go from the beginning of life to the end of life on their own will learn from their own mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes can be irrecoverable. They can be unbelievably painful. In the West, we are seeing the individual being elevated as the highest form. Only a short period ago, that level of individuality was actually called selfishness. And now it's been transformed into something elevated and put like a deity on an altar. And it's not true, it's not real. We have seen selfishness lead to a breakdown in family. We have seen selfishness lead to a breakdown in relationships. We have seen it create impatience, intolerance, and all of those things that destroy the most enjoyable things about human life. When you bring children into this world, you can't do it on your own. It's very, very tough. Ask the mothers who are single mothers in the West whether their decisions have led them to long-term happiness. You know, we have a saying that either you can learn from your own mistakes, but it's better to learn from the mistakes of other people and see what has happened to them and then try and incorporate them in your journey. And ultimately, the highest journey is possible when you have referred to the people who have made the most journeys. And we have got so much Vidya in our Shastra, in our Puranas, in our scriptures. And the Yoga Vishishta is one of my favorite scriptures. The Ramayana, Maryada Purushottam, where we are taught how to navigate a social set of relationships to the highest benefit.